Hey coach, how's it going?
What's up, KG? How you doing?
Hey, not much. And there's like a 16, 17-year-old kid who's looking to play there or emails you or wants you to come look at him. What would be something you'd be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, emails get a lot of them. So, I think finding a way to kind of stand out on the email is important. I mean, I always prefer to get video. Most kids have social media at this point, so it's honestly a really good place for kids to be able to market themselves, right? Is through their Instagram or their Twitter or whatever it might be. And coaches spend a lot more time, I think, now kind of navigating social media. And you know there's so many guys that I find on Twitter that maybe aren't in the region that I don't know about as much. And but just you spend some time kind of perusing when you're bored. I find myself doing that kind of all the time, and just you find some guys that maybe some other teams outside of the region are on, but a kid might be looking to kind of leave home a little bit and kind of travel. And so I would definitely utilize that if I was a 2026, 27 grad, 28 grad right now. Is just try to put yourself out there as much as you can online. Email should be short and sweet. Just say, hey coach, just introduce yourself. I'm interested in your program. Know a little bit about the school in some capacity, I think is really important. Make sure that if you are blasting out emails to 30, 40, 50 schools that you might be interested in some capacity, that you actually make sure that you got the right name of the coach that you're sending emails out to, because there's no quicker way to get crossed off a list than introduce, say, hey coach Smith, love your program at XY institution, and you're not Coach Smith. And so you really want to make sure that if a kid's emailing you, that there is some genuine interest there. And then just tell them a little bit about yourself, just a couple sentences, and then attach some video and say, hope to hear back. If you got any camps or clinics that you'd like me to attend, please feel free to hit me up. We'd love to connect with you, get a chance to get on campus and see campus and meet you and the rest of your staff. And short and sweet. We're not gonna. I probably on average get an email 10 to 15. It kind of varies. It kind of varies depending on the time of the year. But that's a kind of a realistic number of how many emails I get from kids on almost a daily basis. So, the video is important. And I think one thing, you know, I think uncut video is nice too, because especially as a hitter, it's really easy to like snip, five or six or eight or 10 like really good swings that are perfect, and you kind of clip them into, one format. But, if you can get a couple of rounds of batting practice there, I would rather see what your misses are, rather than just 10 or 12 of your A swings that you're just absolutely catching a barrel and everything's working off, perfectly at that point. So, same thing with defensive video, right? Like uncut, just like get me some ground balls. If you play the infield, give me some ground balls at shortstop, a couple right at you, a couple forehands, a couple backhands, a couple slow rollers. And that way I can kind of just see, like, get a little bit better understanding of who you are as a player. And, you know, consistency, how your body moves a little bit. And so that's kind of the best way. I mean, we never had that when I was growing up. I mean, we had to go to showcases all the time, and you had to pay good money to do that. And I think nowadays, showcases are important, but you guys got free showcases right on your Twitter if you're blasting that
Mm.
out. Free opportunity to market yourself now, which is great. So, and then obviously, like the biggest separator is, you know, at least to compete right away, especially in today's college baseball landscape, is just trying to be as physically ready as you possibly can as a 17 or 18-year-old boy, coming into college. And we had two 23-year-olds last year playing shortstop and second base for us. So when you're an 18-year-old and you're coming in, you have to compete against 23-year-olds. It's literally the same difference as an 18-year-old playing against a 13-year-old. That's a big difference. So you need to, the way you can kind of bridge that gap a little bit is just being as physically mature as you possibly can be at that point.
Yep, yep. Um, keeping on the social media topic, do you have any good stories about something, or maybe one of your assistant coaches saw a guy and were like, "Hey, this kid, something caught your eye, you followed up, and you end up getting a really good player."
Yeah, I mean, we, there's so many guys that we come in contact with, especially, a large part of our recruiting is really done in the summer. It's not that we're not recruiting guys all year round because we certainly are, but we basically have just finished up our 26th class at this point. Now, that doesn't mean if there's a 92 mile an hour arm that emails me and says, I want to come to Southern New Hampshire, we'll probably end up taking that guy. But, I think at the end of the day, the bulk of our recruiting is done during May, June, July, and August. Um, but yeah, there's been guys. We got a guy from California 2 years ago that I just saw a video. He was 6'5", 215 pounds, and his arm worked pretty well. And he was battling some injuries. He didn't really get a chance to pitch a whole heck of a lot out in California for his high school team, but he sent me over some, TrackMan and Rapsoda data and stuff, and I was able to look at it, and he's up to 90 miles an hour, and told him he flew out, say, hey, man, I'd love you to visit SNU, and he flew out and saw campus, loved it, and ended up coming. So, sometimes it can be as simple as that. It certainly can be a little bit easier, I think, to get recruited as a pitcher. Um, just because we have a better understanding, I think, as coaches as how that stuff will profile at the collegiate level, how an individual player or pitcher's stuff will profile at the collegiate level based on some metrics and data and stuff. But I think from a position player perspective, it is a little bit harder to get kind of recruited solely based off of video, but it can get you really noticed and put on the map, which is really important because, at the Division II level, we can have prospective student athletes come on campus and actually work them out on campus. So, myself and our coaching staff can put you through really a workout. We can even have you practice with the team, and see how you fit in and see how you kind of respond to being in that environment, right? When you do have some 23-year-olds around, and are you really excited about that? Is it something that you're nervous? Like, do you fit in? Can you hold your own? And just kind of, put guys through a little bit of a workout that way. And that's honestly one of the things that we tend to do quite a bit of is work kids out on campus, especially the position players, because you know if we're getting 10 to 15 emails a day, we obviously can't offer roster spots to everybody, right? We want to make sure that from a roster perspective that we're going to be probably in the mid to upper 30s to low 40s max, just because, we pride ourselves a lot on development. And if you have 45, 50, 55 guys associated with your program, it's really hard to give each one of those, players the time and attention that they probably deserve. So we really like to cap our program. This year we got 37 guys on our roster. And that even may be a couple too many from a position player perspective, but I think we're in a really good spot too. Like we definitely have guys that belong and are happy that they're there. But I think just the workout piece is massive, because that just allows us to work with you. We get to see if you're coachable. We get to see how you take instruction. We get to see how you take constructive criticism. Do you like being coached hard? Is that something that you have experience with in the past? Are you, so we get to learn a lot about you in an hour and a half, or, you couple that with a tour, another hour and a half to 2 hours. You spend, sometimes 3.5, 4 hours with a prospective student athlete. You can get a pretty good feeling of what they're all about during that time. So.
Yep. What about?
Coach, quick
Go
question
ahead.
to follow up on that. Are you talking about an individual workout or a small group workout?
Yeah, I mean, we do individual workouts quite a bit. I mean, especially if it's a guy that, again, like if we're gonna offer you a roster spot, especially if we're gonna offer you scholarship money, we pretty much work out all of our guys. Because it's one thing to see them, at a showcase or play a couple games here and there in the summertime and stuff. And certainly there's a lot of merit to that. I mean, I definitely want to see you playing games, and see how you go about your business there and see how you respond to live pitching and that type of thing. But, you know, we do a lot on, you know, athleticism too. Like we at SNHU really like recruiting good athletes that maybe have the ability to, you know, if they don't stick at shortstop, maybe we can put them in center field or the outfield, or maybe they can play second base. So that process of going through a workout allows us to kind of just see those variables and see how athletic they really are too. So
So that workout is probably somewhere further down the process in the recruiting ladder, if you will. It's not something that's probably too early on, I would imagine, right?
yeah, I mean, I think for us, like, and again, I can't really speak to how other programs do it, but one of our goals when we reach out to a guy, especially if we're the ones doing the outreach first, that's a guy that we're really interested in, and we want to get that person to campus. So that's our goal is get guys to campus. If we're reaching out to you, we're interested in you. We might not be sure exactly how interested we are in you at this point, but there's substantial interest that we're reaching out. So, I think at that point we want to get you to campus. We want to meet you. We want to meet your family. We want to spend some time together, and push you through a workout potentially as well, and just kind of see how everything kind of meshes. Because at the end of the day, and this is something we talk about all the time, like we want it to be the right fit for the student athlete. We want it to be the right fit for us. And I think if, the visit and the workout really allows us to have a better understanding with that. And we're very open and we're very honest during the recruiting process. The last thing that we want to do is, you know, have a guy commit to Southern New Hampshire in the baseball program and get to campus and be 3 weeks into the fall like we are right now and be like, whoa, what did I sign up for? Like this is not what you told me on the recruiting visit or anything like that. Like, there's kids that we've straight up told, like, hey man, you can come, you have a spot if you want it. The path for you getting on the field here is going to be very, very difficult, especially for your freshman, sophomore year. Now, I'm not going to tell you that you're never going to get on the field because I don't know how hard you're going to work and I don't know what's inside of you, right? And what makes you tick. And I'm never going to put a cap on somebody's drive and will and desire. But we're also trying to be realistic too. Like, hey, we just got the shortstop from Seton Hall University. He's coming to Southern New Hampshire. He's got 2 years left. He's on a full scholarship. The chance of you playing as a freshman at shortstop is probably very slim, right? So we have those conversations, and I think that in today's day and age with the recruiting, I feel like we owe that to players. I think it's hard enough to navigate. There's so many coaches, especially at the Division I level, and I don't blame them because it's just the landscape of baseball, right? Especially if you're a Power Four program, like it's cutthroat, and you have to win to keep your job. And it's going to be interesting to see how everything shakes out when rosters go down to 34 here at the end of the fall. But there's still coaches that bring in a lot of guys, and then we'll make cuts. And you know, we don't really believe in that. We want to make sure that we are doing a really good job, as good a job as we possibly can during the evaluation and recruiting process, to make sure that when a kid comes here, there's a good opportunity for that player to be part of the program for 4 years.
Mentioned the metrics and how a lot of kids are worried about their numbers and whatnot. Should everyone at age 16 have a recruiting page that has their 60-yard dash time on it, their fastball, whatever data they have? How important is it to compile that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly I would. I mean, I'm honestly not a very data guy. Like I'm kind of caught in the middle, right? I'm 44 years old, so I think like trying to still be young and relate to the young guys, which everything is data and numbers and, you know, but I feel like I try to stay true to my roots too, which is more of an old school guy. Baseball and my eyeballs tell me pretty much what I want to see, but there are some basics, right? Like, you know, velo, spin rates, exit velo. I think if you're a physical guy too, it's not a terrible thing to put like, squats, bench, that type of stuff on there as far as like what you can do. And, you know, if, if you're a 17-year-old kid and your max on the bench is 135 pounds, then you're probably not as physical as where you need to be right now to play at Southern New Hampshire, right? But if you're 18 years old and you can bench 220, 225, then I'm not saying that this is, these numbers are set in stone by any means whatsoever, because they're not, but at least gives us an idea of like, all right, this kid's a little bit more physically mature. He's been in the weight room a little bit more. There's probably a higher probability of him potentially getting on the field a little bit earlier than the guy that hasn't been there yet. But um, you know, we got, I mean, we have everything. We got a kid that's right now that's 6'4", and he's a freshman. He is probably 165 pounds soaking wet. So he is super, super skinny and super, super projectable, and he's got a good swing, good arm, good hands. He's not ready to go yet, but in a year or two, you know, hopefully he gets there. It's on that freshman 15 or so in college. He can kind of get in the weight room and follow our strength and conditioning program pretty well. And if he can do that, in a year or so, we might have something there. So, but yeah, I think I would, especially if you got numbers that are going to generate some interest, right? And I think that's one of the things that everybody wants to go to Vanderbilt, right, and play college baseball there and at the Division I level, or you go to LSU or SEC programs or Power Four and stuff, and that's great, and it's awesome to have aspirations. But I also think you have to be super realistic too, especially today more than ever. You know. Of where you're going, and again what the right fit is, and that has to be not only from an athletic perspective, but it has to be from the academic side of things too, and socially as well. And so I think that's important. And it's like I said, we have guys on all up and down the spectrum. We have guys that are tall and skinny and lean, and we got short, thicker guys. Like we got pitchers on the mound that I got, a pitcher from Leominster, Massachusetts, that's a sophomore. He's 5'8", probably 175 pounds, and he really spins it really well. And he's up to 90 on the mound too, but he's a shorter guy. We also have guys that, last year we had Jackson Marshall was on our team, and he's 6'8", 265 pounds. And so, baseball players can come in all different shapes and sizes, and certainly, Dustin Pedroia, the list goes on, right? Like you don't have to be massive and huge and fit and super physical to be successful in this game, but it does give you some more room for error for sure. So,
Can you touch on grades and GPA and how like it can open or close doors, like difference between a guy that's like 2.5 versus a guy that has a 3.8 GPA or something like that?
yeah, obviously, the better grades you have, the more doors you're going to be able to keep open for yourself. And, I have colleagues and stuff that are coaches at NESCAC schools and Ivy League schools. And, a guy that I know really well, Chris Morris, is the head coach at MIT. I mean, you really can't get any more academic than that, right? So, that's the first thing that he's obviously looking at. If you're not a 4.0 or better, you're probably getting crossed off the list. And, but, I think, again, that goes back to the fit part. And I would just say, get the best grades you possibly can, because you never know, you don't want to be limiting yourself. You want to have as many options as you possibly can. And the better grades that you have, the more opportunities you're going to get. Right. And I think even if we have the gamut at SNHU. We have guys that come in that are 2.5s out of high school, and we have other guys that are basically 3.8, 3.9 students out of high school. And academically, you get more money if you're at SNHU. Anyways, if you're a 3.5 or better, there's academic merit-based money that will be handed out to you if you have that. And every college varies a little bit depending on how much they give out or the percentage that they give out. But certainly, just we're fortunate because I don't have to look at just one area that like I got anybody less than a 3.8 I have to cross off the list. That would be we'd be attending only academic showcases, show ball showcases, like just things like that, right? we're lucky enough where we can kind of get the gamut of students. Now, most students that are 3.8 or better are probably looking at the NESCAC or Ivy League schools, but occasionally and it comes down to priorities and just what people want, right? And occasionally we'll get those guys and stuff too. So,
Yep. I don't know, a couple more things from me, and then we'll open it up. But like, let's say there's a kid you like, good player in New Hampshire. You're gonna call the high school coach. What's the first thing you say to that coach?
yeah, I mean, you just tell me how this kid is as just holistically. Like, give me some. I know how he is as a player, right? Like, I got a good understanding of how he is as a player, but is he a good teammate? Is he fun to be around? How does how does he handle adversity? That type of thing. Like, we want to get honest feedback, and we know coaches are gonna, say, give a, for the most part, give a positive recommendation, but at the same time, like, that's that first level of trust that we have with some coaches and stuff in the region, in the area as well. And you know guys don't want to put their name on a prospective student if they're messing up off the field, or they can't be trusted, or they're showing up late, or that is, those are headaches, right? Those are headaches for us as a college coach. And we don't have time for that. Like, we want to worry about baseball. We want to worry about having conversations that solely revolve around baseball from a off the field perspective. Now, certainly we get to know our players, and we get to know what makes them tick, and you know to have those conversations are always really, really good to have too. But as far as like from a disciplinary, why are you showing up late? Why aren't you going to class? Like, what's happening off the field here? Why did I get a phone call from, public safety, at 12 o'clock last Saturday night? Like, we don't want to have those conversations. We want our conversations to be, driven around baseball, and then what makes you tick as a person. So, we get a little bit of you know, realness from high school coaches and stuff too, because they know best. They've been with that player for 3 or 4 years at that point, and they have a really good understanding of kind of who that guy is. And me personally, like, unless it's huge major red flags, like, it's not necessarily a end all be all, because I feel like part of our job too as coaches is to develop the man and develop the person, and we kind of welcome that. And certainly at 18 years old, I wasn't a finished product. And I don't think at 44 years old, I'm a finished product right now. And I'm still trying to work on myself every day. So I try to, give these guys the benefit of the doubt too. But there's obviously standards too that need to be adhered to. And, so like that is important.
I mean, you guys are a D2 Power College World Series. Seems like every year you're at kind of a different level. A lot of guys um grow up with a label of like, oh, D1 or bust or high level. But I always, I'm sure you'd agree, like there's some really good options out there to play and get some credits. And if you're going to grow and you want to transfer later, seems like that's sort of a theme that I'm trying to pass along to a lot of guys. Because like you said, these guys on your team, they're 22 years old. There's nothing wrong with going to where you coach New England College or um and then moving on. So can you kind of just reflect on that and how the portal has changed a lot of things, and how it's okay to start small and not, you don't have to have a D1 label.
Yeah. I mean, kids, it's one of the things honestly that I struggle with a little bit. Right. And yeah, I mean, we lost a kid a couple weeks ago to a mid-major Division I program, and he wants to go Division I, and I can't offer that, right? And you know, that's one of the things that I struggle with, right? Because I feel like there's a lot of value that we offer um, at the elite Division II level, from an experience perspective, from a development perspective, that you may or may not get at the mid-major Division I level and stuff too. And yeah, you get to post it on social media that you committed to a Division I institution, and that's great. But is that the right thing for you long term? And maybe it is. And if it is, that's perfectly fine. But you know, falling in love with that D1 label is to me, you should be able to look at all avenues, and that includes, JUCOs and NAIA programs, Division III programs. I was, back when I was choosing a school, I was in the middle of that. My final two choices were Northeastern and Franklin Pierce, and I had some other Division I offers to just pitch, and um, I decided to go to Franklin Pierce, and that for me at that point, and playing for Coach King and having the opportunity to pitch and play third base, and get an opportunity to pitch right away as a freshman and be in the rotation was massive for me. And would it have been cool to go to Northeastern or Coastal Carolina or something like that and pitch maybe, a handful of innings as a freshman? Yeah, that would have been neat, but you know, I think baseball is a great sport because, if you're good enough and you have aspirations and the ability to potentially play at the professional level, you're going to get noticed, and there's going to be, as long as you have a coach that's going to vouch for you, there's going to be opportunities for you to kind of get noticed and put on the radar from a professional baseball perspective and stuff too. But um, again, that just comes all back down to the right fit. Like, just don't fall in love with that. There's such good baseball at every level. You know, yeah, there's unbelievable Division III teams that would beat some Division I teams, in probably in New England and I'm sure in the country. And there's really good players at all levels. And that's the bottom line is you have to go a place that you feel comfortable, that you fit in with the vision of the program, and you get along with the coaching staff. And again, one of the things we tell guys on recruiting trips here is like, you know, there's expectations if you come to Southern New Hampshire, and one of our expectations is that we're going to be playing in June, right? And in the College World Series or in Super Regionals, and you have the opportunity to get back down to Cary. And with expectations comes pressure sometimes, and we want guys that look forward to that, not kind of shy away from that, right? And if you're not if you're not cool with having some expectations put on you and being coached hard, then this probably isn't the right place for you. And you can go someplace else, and that's perfectly fine. But that's part of the right fit, right? And everybody is wired differently. And I think it's important that you really do some, really do some deep dive and look in the mirror as far as what you're made of and what you really want out of your college career. Do you want to just look good on social media for a week and have all your buddies retweet you and repost it and stuff like that, and then be walking into an environment that you're not 100% sold on? Or you really want to make sure that, hey, this is the right fit, regardless on whether or not it's the cool thing right now or it's going to get 1,000 retweets or whatever? Like, this is the best fit for me. And you have to swallow your pride at that point and just do whatever's best for you. And you should take your family into consideration there, and obviously people that are close to you. And um, they're not going to try to steer you wrong, for sure. So
It, something just occurred to me. Is it even smart to post, like, everyone wants to post their Instagram thing that they committed when they're age 16, whatever? Is that even a smart thing to do? Because aren't you cutting off potential colleges if you're saying, oh, I'm going here, and then all of a sudden you don't have a great junior year or senior year, and then you don't even end up going to that school, and now you missed out on other coaches not looking at you because you said you already committed?
yeah, well, I mean, I think that's a dicey one, right? Like, I think that being a college coach, and it's like, I'll give you an example. We got a kid from, like Wyndham that committed last year, and you know he's a very highly touted pitcher, and you know he committed really early. I think he probably committed in maybe February or March this past year. So for 2026, that's pretty early for us to get on those guys and have a commit at that point. Division Is are kind of getting commits at that point. We're usually a little bit later in the game. But like, he didn't post right away that he was committed. And so you have all these other coaches that are potentially reaching out to him from like either Division II schools or Division I schools. And obviously for me as being a coach, like, I want that kid. I want to make sure that he's invested at Southern New Hampshire. We gave him scholarship money. We gave him this, we gave him that. Right. So, I want to make sure that, other coaches know that he is committed. So, they're not reaching out. And obviously once, it's kind of the unwritten rule of just college coaches is once a kid's committed, you leave them alone. And I think that may have changed a little bit with the portal now and things like that, certainly. But I still think it's pretty well respected, generally speaking, as far as if a kid's committed, but like, yeah, like, I mean, I can think of a guy like Grant McCoubry, right? Like Grant was supposed to be going to Vandy and stuff, and all of a sudden that didn't work out for him and stuff. And, since I think for his freshman year or sophomore year, Grant was committed to go to Vandy. And then all of a sudden he's not anymore. And he's going into his senior year and, he got hurt and now he's PGing. And so it does throw a wrench in the process, right? But honestly, it's hard. I just, you keep doing the right things, you keep working hard, good things are going to work out for you. They always do. And that's what I told Grant. I was like, you're going to be in good shape. Like I know it's a really, same thing with Brendan Horn and stuff too, and this happens all the time. Unfortunately now it just does. And I think that once we get a year or two into this whole thing where these major Division I programs have the 34-man roster, I think it's going to start to even itself back out where it's not happening as much. But you totally think from their perspective too, like they got to have guys that are ready to go. They got to have a roster of 34 men that are ready to go and compete, and they can't spend time developing 18-year-olds unless you're ready to go and ready to help them win now. So I get it from the coach's perspective too. So it's really tricky. It's a really tricky situation, but I would definitely prefer that if a kid's committed that he posts that and we know, because now I'm not wasting my time either, right? Like if I called up that kid that is committed and he didn't post anything, I don't want to spend my time to call that kid. I'm just going to look on his bio on Twitter and say committed to you know BC, and then I'm not calling that kid, right? So,
Right.
but
Um,
So, Coach, quick follow up on that. As a parent, as opposed to a coach, and I know I'm asking a coach from a recruiting standpoint, but um, how do you juggle recruits and be honest with them about, their true prospects in baseball, right? I mean, you've got kids at this age that like their dream is to play as high a level of baseball as they can, right?
yep.
And what I struggle with is, that should that really be your focus of how you're picking a college, or should it be academics and then if you can play baseball or whatever sport you want to at that college on top of that, great. But to me, that seems to be a struggle to some degree with how you approach where you want to pick a school.
Yeah, I think it varies from family to family, right, and player to player, because you know for me, and I'm not saying that this was right, but when I was picking a school, baseball trumped the academics, right? I picked Franklin Pierce over Northeastern as my final two schools. Nothing against Franklin Pierce, but it's probably not the same education that you're getting there compared to Northeastern, right? So, but so I put probably 65, 70% of my focus and importance on baseball and maybe 35% on academics. So everybody has their scale and their weight of like how they're weighing things out. So, I do think that both are really important. And like I said before, it comes down to the fit, and both those things should be taken into consideration. And, you know, I think a big part of my decision too to go to Franklin Pierce was geographically, right? And one's on a farm in New Hampshire with 800 students, and one's in the middle of downtown Boston with 35,000 students. And at 18 years old, being in downtown Boston for me at that point in time probably wasn't the right move for myself. And I think deep down inside, I knew that, and I made the decision accordingly, right? But um, yeah, I think it's good to have aspirations of playing at the highest level you possibly can. But you know, for me, I wouldn't be happy if I went to a bigger Division I and I threw 10 innings as a freshman and 15 innings as a sophomore. Like that wouldn't have been fun for me. It also wouldn't have been fun for me if I was going to go to a losing program. Like I want to win and I love winning and I love winning a ton, but I hate losing way more than I love winning. And you know, Coach King was building something special. I wanted to be part of the change and I wanted to do those things. And if I was really lucky and got drafted after my junior year and left, but if I would have stayed for my senior year, they went to the national semifinals and went to the College World Series. So, that was the reason I went there is I wanted to be part of that change and building of that program. And so like that was important to me. So, I think, and I think you need to, I think prospective recruits need to do a really good job of asking questions of the coaches as far as like, all right, what do you have coming back at this position? What do you, how many guys are you looking to bring in? How many pitchers, if I'm a pitcher, how many pitchers are you bringing in? Like, how many guys do you have on staff right now? How many guys do you typically use during the season? Like, what, like ask those questions, right? Like, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you, for us, the best players play. If you're, and I honestly think that's the way it should be. If you're going to get every opportunity that you would as a true freshman, as you would as a transfer. Like we put a huge level of importance on earning your job every single year, and kind of, yes, we have our guys that we know are going to play, and we know that, but every year there's always a couple positions that are kind of up for grabs, and there's always innings up for grab. So, you know, how bad do you want it? How bad do you really want to, you know, get in the gym and work hard there? How bad do you really want to compete? Those are all things that we're kind of going through right now in fall ball, right? We inter squad, and there's some pitchers. I'm wondering who's gonna. I have a good idea of who our top 7 or 8 guys are gonna be, but we can't really get through the season with 7 or 8 guys. Like we need 10 or 11, like really good ones, right? So who are those 2 or 3 other guys that are going to be vying for those innings that are really going to step up? And there's a handful of guys that can do it, but there's going to only probably be 2 or 3 that actually separate themselves. So, but the questions I think is really important to asking the questions of college coaches, and certainly certainly guys do that when we have guys on campus too. I think some more than others, but um, I think we try to be, at least at SNHU, we try to be as open as we possibly can, because we don't want kids coming and then, like I said before, being like, wow, this is totally not what I expected, or man, they got 4 shortstops that are in front of me. Like I'm the 5th guy. Like, you know, that's not good, right? So
Last question, being there's a lot of these parents here, and myself involved in travel baseball for years and other things, bombarded with showcase offers, right? Like the perfect game, the firecracker, all the tournaments we go to, all offer showcases at varying degrees of cost
yep.
and at varying degrees, in my opinion. Having spent this past summer attending a few of those, I'm wondering, one, what do you think the value of the data that comes out? I mean, let's separate the top 10% performers that they probably don't need to showcase anyway because they're going to go out and people are going to chase them anyway. Let's call it maybe the middle of the pack group that are enticed to spend three, four, five, $600 on a showcase, maybe once, maybe twice, whatever. Is there real value in that unless you're killing it? We've done a perfect game showcase. We did a University of Richmond academic prospect showcase this summer that was run really well. The one thing I've noticed coming out of that University of Richmond showcase is, we now get probably 10 emails every other week from coaches that attended, inviting us to their showcase. And
Mhm.
I get the feeling this is just becoming a money maker for these colleges. They're not necessarily interested. They probably couldn't pick my son out of a lineup of 5 guys, but if they can get another $300-400 out of somebody coming down for a showcase, I mean, is that what this has become with some of this stuff?
It's hard to say. Like, I mean, I've obviously attended, some of those showcases in the past as a college coach, and I think, getting a list of coaches that are expected to be in attendance, I think is important, right? Like, I think
Hmm.
going to a specific institution's showcase, then, there probably should be some significant conversation or some type of at least some type of conversation that's had between, the coaching staff and that player of like, hey, we got to see you play a couple times this summer. Would like to get a closer look at you here. We're offering this on-campus showcase, or prospect day that we're offering for you guys and stuff. And, there needs to be some, I think, some interest there for sure. But then at the same time, like there's some guys that will go to showcases or go to camps on clinics on campus, and they'll pull guys out of there. And we had a prospect camp on this past, I don't even remember what it was, but I think KG was there and stuff, and we ended up getting one guy. We got a guy from there, and that was a guy that I had saw earlier, I think in January at Northeastern, and he was a guy that I kind of put on our radar, and I reached out to him and invited him to the prospect camp that we had, and he did really well, and we ended up signing him and stuff. And so I think but again, I had some communication with him previous.
Well, I guess that's probably
You
the crux of my point there. So you had some personal communication from
know,
your personal or coach's email to them. I feel like that's a very different situation, and I think I would view that differently than there were 30 people, 30 good colleges down at this showcase in Virginia, and now, you know, five or six or 10 of them are very active in trying to, what to me seems like a form letter, getting more, generate some revenue by let's get a bunch of people to come to our showcase, and no other communication whatsoever. So I look at it kind of like, is this,
yeah, I mean, it's certainly that definitely happens. There's no doubt about that. It definitely happens, and there's a lot of times where there's mid-major Division Ones and Division Twos sometimes pay their assistants through camps and clinics and things like that too, and
hmm.
that's a major way to kind of get them taken care of financially and stuff as well. But it's hard to speak to like other programs and stuff and what they're exactly looking for. But I do know that I've attended the Firecracker ones. I've attended PBR, a lot of that stuff in the past. Perfect Game, like there's different events that are kind of on the hot list for college coaches, I guess, in the area and stuff that we try to get to. And then I think a part of it too is being realistic with the player that, if you're a mom or a dad, or you're, a travel ball coach, and understanding like, all right, this is the nucleus of the guys that we have on this team. Like most of our guys are going to be, Division 3 players, or we got two guys that are probably D1 guys, or high end Division 2 guys. And, who's going to be at this Firecracker showcase? Because, I know they do a good job, and I know PBR does a good job, and there's a lot of good players that go to that, and they're very well scouted and very well recruited. And, certainly if you go there and you perform well and you have some ability, there's going to be opportunities for you as a college baseball player. And that's one thing that I've learned, is that if you are serious about playing college baseball and you work hard, there's probably a home for you at some place in college baseball. And you just got to find it, right? So
So the takeaway for a parent being looking at these showcases, that tournaments we're going to be going to next year and whatever or coming years, is would you say the takeaway ought to be is to be honest with yourself before you just spend a lot of money throwing money at showcases if it's really not something that's going to benefit you?
yeah, I 100% would do that. I mean, I know that that's right. Like I'm a parent too, and like, right, like I got a 30-year-old boy that plays for KG and stuff, and like obviously there's all kids develop and move at different times, but like you also need to like be realistic, right? Like, my son's a good player, but as of right now, he's probably not a upper echelon Division 1 player right now. Now things could change, but right now he's got a lot of work to do, to get to that point. So. I think it's important that you have that conversation and stuff, and you kind of figure out, where those guys are at, and every parent, and I get it, every parent, probably ticks their kid up a little bit higher than probably where they need to be or where they should be, right? And that's we love them and we get that, but if you really love them, you really want what's best, you want to make sure you get the right fit too, right? And that's how they're going to be happy, and that's what really matters. The chances of guys going to the big leagues and making millions of dollars a year are very, very slim. It can happen, and it does happen, but it's more important that they enjoy their college experience, and it's well rounded. So I think that's where it starts, is having those true conversations of like, hey, what's important to you, son? You know what I mean? Like, have you given thought to, do you want a big school? Do you want a small school? Do you want to be in the city? Do you want to be in the suburbs? Does it matter if the school has a football team? Does it matter if it's a small school or big school? Like, do you want to be close to home? Do you want to go far away? Do you want to explore? Like, as parents, we kind of know our kids the best too. How are they going to respond to the coach that's there, right? Is this an old school in your face coach, or is it a new school, a little bit more laid back, a little easygoing? Like, how is my son or daughter going to thrive in those environments, right? Like, is it a good fit? Like, how are they brought up? And there's no right and wrong there. Like, there's no better or worse. It's just different, right? So the good news is that the good news and the bad news, and I may have skipped over this a little bit, KG. I know you asked me something about the transfer portal and stuff, but there is the transfer portal now, so that's kind of a get out of jail free card if you do go to a school and it isn't the right fit, and you can go someplace else and find your right fit at that point. So
we always hear about showcases, and I see parents send me emails. Should I go to this? Oh, I got invited to a showcase on Long Island. It's $299, for a day. But one thing I learned this past summer when I helped coach the Underwood games, work on your skill, refine your skills, and become a good player. This Underwood games thing, between the tryouts and the actual game, there were like a dozen coaches that saw these guys, and this was a free event. The guys that got invited were good players and didn't have to spend a dime to get seen by guys like yourself. I know you were there.
yeah, we were there. I mean, we were there, and I mean, there's a lot of good colleges in New Hampshire that were there, and Massachusetts. So, like, the Underwood Games is great, and that's awesome, and that's a perfect example of, like, you don't have to spend the money. Certainly it's I don't think it's going to negatively impact you if you do spend the money, but also don't be signing up for showcases if your kid's not ready to play at the collegiate level, right? Like, it would do me no good to put my son in a showcase right now or even next year. Like, PBR takes 2029 graduates. Well, he's a 2030 graduate, so that'll be next year. He could potentially go to that camp. Unless he grows 6, 7 inches and puts on 40, 50 pounds, like, I'm not sending my son to that showcase because he's not ready to go yet. So why am I going to showcase, an unfinished or unmature version of my son when he's not there yet? So, we got to be, as parents, you got to be smart about, right? Like, if you don't have a product that people want to buy, then why are you trying to sell it? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make sense. So, but that starts with those real conversations, right? Like,
Well, that's where the honesty comes in. A lot of,
right,
when you love the product, you want to
right.
sell it, whether it's
Of
somebody
course,
else wants it or not.
of course, and I get that too, for sure. And it's hard as parents to take a step back and be like, all right, I love the product, and I'm never gonna not love this product, but are other people gonna love this product? Like, do we have, like, and I'm sure somebody will, but like, who's the right suitor for that, right? To love that
Right.
product. So
Any other parents or players have any questions? Awesome, coach. Well, roll pen. Good luck. We're pulling for you guys, and we'll see you soon.
I appreciate that. Nobody's got any questions? We got nothing right now? I guess not, huh?
I
We
guess
got
you
a
hit it all. You
quiet
covered.
bunch. All right, guys. Well, I wish everybody the best of luck. And, if you guys need anything from me, just let me know.
All
Thanks,
right.
KG.
Roll
Thanks,
pen.
Chris. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What'd you think? Oh.